Hey everyone, it's Bina, and in today's video, I'm gonna go over the Lightning Swarmblade build guide updated for 1.0. So, this is gonna be very similar to the Frostbite Swarmblade, although it is gonna scale a lightning. So we're scaling the Storm Bolts, right? Storm Bolts are from Gathering Storm. Gathering Storm has two portions of the skill. One is the melee attack, and one is the Storm Bolt. The Storm Bolt scales with all the same things as the melee attack does. If it doesn't say specifically that it's for the melee attack, then Storm Bolt also gets it, right? So Storm Bolts are going to be spawned from our Tornadoes and from our Maelstrom. Tornadoes spawn them via Charge Storm, and we're increasing the frequency with this one. And then Maelstrom, as long as you have 6 stacks, you cast 1 every second, and then you're going for more additional targets with this node here. So this is going to be how you scale them. You spawn Tornadoes in Swarmblade form by attacking, and then when you're at 6 stacks, and then we're reducing it by 2 stacks. So when you're actually at every 4 attack, you will spawn a Tornado. And we're not getting the more damage multiplier here, Howling Cascade tornado damage. We used to get this in 0.9, but we now lost it because it now only scales with Gathering Storm. So because Stormbolt cannot scale with like multiple different trees, then we're only getting it to scale its damage with Gathering Storm instead of Tornado, which would give us 100% here, 88% here if you had the 4 points. This is something that we lost compared to 0.9, but we did gain something with Rule of the Simoon, which you can now proc the Tornado, which will get all the more multipliers. So it's actually a slight nerf, but overall, still a very good build, and I still recommend it, especially for hardcore, since you have access to like building tankiness more easily, and also Aura's Time Glass. Let's go over a map here real quick, and we'll see how this build actually plays. So as you can see, nothing has really changed. One thing that's pretty nice is the Rule of the Simoon here, getting us the Tornado. So this is kind of like passive damage as you go by. Very nice for just like, you know, echo farming and then having some sustain. Keep in mind that Tornado will actually proc itself. So Rule of the Simoon's Fire Tornado will actually proc itself off of its proc. That is pretty much how it plays. Now let's go over the skills. For the skills, obviously we're transforming into Swarmblade form. So when in Swarmblade form, our mana is transformed into Rage. So we are also scaling our Rage via the Excited Bolts, because we are going to drain, every time that we cast a Stormbolt, it's going to drain our mana, it's going to consume mana, and it's going to give us percentage damage per 10th current mana. So you want to scale this as high as possible, because mana is considered as Rage when you're transformed. This is actually going to be very important to scale your Rage, and then always keep this topped off. So there are a couple of ways that we do this. One is Endless Pressure, Grasshopper Frenzy, and also in our passive in the Druid tree, we have Rageborn. I suggest waiting until you have your 8 points into Rageborn before starting this build. So Swarmblade form here, we're scaling this. We are getting the Tornadoes. We're getting 10% base crit chance with this, and then we're getting some Rage on hit when you or your Locust crits. Getting stacks of Maelstrom on dive. So we want to dive on cooldown and want to attack with Armblade Slash. This is pretty much how the build plays. And yeah, the extra points that you can get into Swarmblade form are going to be very good, because you're going to be able to put more points into Water Strider and get some extra attack speed here. Next up, we have Viper's Call. So Swarmblade form is using Serpent Strike tree. Serpent Strikes requires a spear, but because we're in Swarmblade form, we actually don't require a spear, and just our Armblade Slash just use the Serpent Strike tree. So what are we using this for? Mainly for Slither. Slither is going to be your multiplicative bonus for dodge rating. So this is multiplicative with itself. Every attack that you do, every Armblade Slash that you do, will give you Slither, so 10% dodge rating, and then you have a 10% more on top of that, and then 10% extra on top of that, and continuously like this, right, for 4 seconds. So with enough attack speed, you can reach like the pretty much 84-85% dodge rating on this build. We're also using it to get flat dodge rating per 10% cold res. Flat dodge rating also scales off of Sleet-footed in Maelstrom tree. So this is going to be very good to scale our dodge, and it's going to synergize with Slither. We're using it for attack speed, armor shred chance, and also getting a kill threshold, which is really nice, especially against bosses, since they have boss damage reduction, dynamic boss damage reduction, and it's extremely good to have a kill threshold on any build, basically. So that is it for Serpent Strike. Maelstrom, we're using it to get haste and frenzy at all times, because we're going to get 6 stacks. So 6 stacks is the bare minimum you want to reach. Also getting Storm Bolts at each second when you have 6 stacks or more. So all of the things synergize with getting 6 stacks, but you want to get even more stacks because Rending Vortex gives you 1% crit chance per Maelstrom. So the more you can get, the easier it's going to be to cap your critical strike chance. We're getting stack duration, dodge rating per Maelstrom, and the increased global stun chance per stack. So that's going to be your good source of CC. We already talked about Swarmblade form, Gathering Storm. It's your main damage ability, right? So we are using Tempest Weapon because we want Gathering Storm to deal additional spell damage per 3 melee damage on your equipped axe or mace. Axe is going to be your Tempest Maw, and because of the stats that Tempest Maw has, this is why we are now having this weapon as a best in slot, because its implicits are pretty good for the build, and its explicits as well. On top of that, it's very easy to get with legendary potential, especially now that we have COF and Merchant's Guild. This is especially good as of 1.0. So this node is the main reason why we're going for that route. We're going for the Stormbolt chance, so anything that increases our damage, right? Pretty straightforward. And then the base crit chance. Tornado here. Most important ones are Frugal Lightning and Charge Storm. Using Eye of the Storm to cast your tornadoes on you. So this does not remove your ability to cast more than one tornado. It's just you can't cast more than one at once. So it disabled this node, so you don't get the double cast, but you will be able to stack many tornadoes on you at one time. So we're going for the Churning Orbs. Churning Orbs is basically used to help with your rage sustain because it's an extra hit, and then if you have a lot of attack speed, you will need those extra hit to sustain your rage and be at the top of your rage pool for excited bolts. So this is the main reason why we're using this. Also, the extra points here are going to be into Gust of Renewal, and then if you have any extra into Storm Deverish, feel free to play with your points in this tree because it will be different for everyone depending on how much attack speed that you actually have. So if you feel like you're sustaining your rage, you're topped off all the time, feel free to remove some points and move them elsewhere, maybe more attack speed, or maybe removing the Churning Orbs. But Churning Orbs is also pretty nice because it will scale your Armor Shred, so it's an extra hit that scales Armor Shred. Very good for that as well. Feel free to play around with this. You can also play around with Endless Pressure, Grasshopper Frenzy, depending on the amount of stacks that you get from Maelstrom to get a base crit chance. You might even want to play around with Needle-like Sting to get 100% crit. This is all up to you. And if you notice that you are lacking some rage, and then maybe remove some points, put more points into the mana efficiency or something like this, right? So that pretty much covered the skills. Now let's go into the passives. Actually, let's go over the gear. I am here on the Maxwell build guide. So if I go into the gearing section, there are 4 different variants of the build. So starting gear has no uniques, no nothing, only 2 affixes maxed out at tier 5. So this is like your basic set of gear that you're looking for. And then advanced gear, now you have some uniques with no LP. So Tempest Maw is pretty good here. Legacy of the Quiet Forest, very good to cap your poison res and half of your void res with just 1 piece of armor. So this is gonna be pretty good for gearing, easing the gearing process and getting your resistances up where you need them. And then Stormcarved Testament, extremely good for the build, giving us a lot of synergies with many of our scaling abilities. Attunement is scaling Stormbolt. Stormbolt scales off of Attunement by giving it 1 flat damage per attunement. So we are now getting way more flat damage than we used to in 0.9. And so Stormcarved Testament, with the lightning penetration, with the attunement, with the mana, so many things that actually scale our damage. Endgame gear, we're starting to see some uniques with LP here. So Kolnavar's Claim is going to help us with our crit, lightning spell critical strike chance at 90%. Also has very nice stats, and it's pretty easy to get with 3 LP. Every Serenity Tempest Maw here, as I said earlier, because of the node in Gathering Storm, we are using this one. Quiet's Forest, Ethereal's Path. So these boots are actually pretty good. They have a big health roll, and they are very easy to get with at least 1 LP. If you manage to get movement speed on here, the build is going to feel extremely good and much better than without movement speed, because you're essentially making use of the implicit movement speed, your legendary movement speed, and the explicit. So basically, movement speed in any build in Last Epoch will make your build feel much better. And obviously Stormcarved Testament with LP. Nice little addition here, Aura's Time Glass. This one essentially makes you, it gives you a second life every 20 seconds. So if any hit leaves you below 30% health and doesn't kill you, you are restored to full health and get a nice ward shield on top of that for a certain duration. So extremely good, especially for hardcore. I would suggest this build for hardcore if you want to play a Swarmblade build. Our idols, we're using spell damage while transform, cold damage, and lightning damage. So obviously these could be replaced by more idols to fix your resistances early on. But if you want more damage, this is what you want to go for. And then critical strike avoidance and health. These are extremely good and highly valued idols for Primalist. So because we lost our Spriggan companion, we need to find a way to cap our crit avoidance in some other way. So this is one of the ways that we are doing it. Illyres will transform, and then cold resistances here. And then the best in slot setup, we have Rule of the Simoon with melee attack speed, mana, and increased health, and hybrid health. So Rule of the Simoon actually benefits from all of the more multipliers from Gathering Storm. This is why we are using it now. And then Advent of the Erased. These boots have less damage over time taken while you have haste, and we always have haste. So if you manage to have a really, really good, really well-rolled Advent of the Erased boots, you could use this, and this would be actually better than the Etros Path boots here because of damage over time and how hard it is to mitigate its damage. So Stormcraft Testament, Static Shell here is added, and this one is used for the percentage more armor against shocked enemies and also more lightning damage. So you get some damage out of it and you get more armor. If you don't have a nice armor roll, I would not bother with this one. But if you manage to do it, if you manage to get one with multiple LP and a high armor roll, it would be the best in slot. So that is pretty much it for the gear. Now let's go into the passive section here. In our passives, so obviously there is 5 points into the Shaman tree to be able to get access to Tornado. Into the base Primalist tree, you need Harmony of Blades to be able to dual wield. We're going for health, attunement, damage, and then our last points are used into less damage taken on low health. This is just for extra tankiness. Beastmaster attacks, essentially pretty much all Primalists use the Beastmaster tree to get access to less damage taken. So we're getting less damage taken on nearby enemies with Ursine Strength, and also Aspect of the Boar, giving us less damage taken, and we are proccing it off of our melee attacks. So this is the Beastmaster attacks. Druid, we're going for Endurance and Armor. We're going for Attunement, increased damage, and LA Pen will transform. These 2 points here these two passives will give you access to no rage decay out of combat and less rage decay, so it's going to be easier to sustain your rage, and quality of life with no rage decay out of combat. Attack speed, we're scaling this as much as possible to cast as many tornadoes on us as possible. Crit chance here, and also health leech on crit. Very, very, very important to get these points. We are missing drastically some health leech since our blessing got nerfed from 0.9, so this one is very important. Rageborn, again, crit chance and rage gain on crit, essential for the build. Attunement and crit avoidance per 5 attunement. This is one other way that we are scaling our crit avoidance to reach a 100% cap. And then hide skin and impervious urges for damage mitigation. So that pretty much covers the entire build. I still think this build, even though it has been nerfed from 0.9, I still think it's very good. It is easier to get into than Frostbite Swarmblade. Although Frostbite Swarmblade, with the proper investment in gear, will have a higher damage output and better tankiness than this build. Although you don't get access to Aurora's Time Glass, so for hardcore, I would highly suggest going with Lightning Swarmblade instead. So overall, extremely good build. I hope you liked the video, I hope you liked the guide, and I will keep updating my guides for 1.0 for every single build guide that I have on Max Roll. I hope you like it. If you enjoy, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys all in the next video.